Hey guys, this is Tattoo Tony and welcome to another adventure. Today we're going to go around the city and check out some places where some of the displaced or homeless people in the city of St. Louis are staying during the COVID-19 pandemic. And there are some shelters, I believe, that are open. It's hard to find information on just how many homeless people there are in the city of St. Louis. The last numbers that I found were from 2017, where the city had claimed that the homeless population had went down and was at about 1,600. You could see where that number could be a lot higher than what they estimated or counted, because they said they went to like 50 locations. And as I have been around the city in so many different buildings in different parts of the city, there are definitely more than 50 locations where homeless stay. There's probably some larger areas where they congregate and there's a larger number of them, but then there's one or two or three here and there off in different neighborhoods that have a lot of decay. Now this building here is an empty warehouse. I think maybe on my subtitle I spelled warehouse wrong, but I've spent 6 hours making this video, so I'm not going to correct it. So anyways, you see all the trash piled up in here. Right over to my right, I don't know if I show it, but there's tons of to-go boxes and containers and tons of cat food. Empty cat, this whole place, there's probably hundreds upon thousands of, that might be an exaggeration, but there's a lot of empty cat food cans. And there was a bunch of stray and feral cats around here too. It looks like maybe somebody is feeding them. Maybe the homeless are feeding them. I'm not sure though. You'd think you'd buy food for yourself and not food for cats, but who knows. But in any case, I didn't go all the way. I didn't have a light and I didn't have a respirator and I wasn't really prepared, but all the way to the back of this room, it definitely looked like there were some coats hanging and like somebody was living inside here. You can see some belongings, but the amount of trash piled up is just unbelievable. And that was actually like a little piece of a blunt or something laying on the ground there. I didn't touch it or pick it up, but it's almost kind of reminds you, some of these places get so full of trash. Not quite, but it kind of reminds me of watching documentaries with Brazilian trash dumps. So, and then we are going to fly over some areas and see some homeless encampments in different spots in the cities up close. So this is on the north side of the city, just north of downtown. And this area actually, if you drive around it, was once more densely populated with buildings and abandoned and derelict buildings. There's been quite a few that are knocked down. There's still a lot that are left. But this is kind of a long video, so if you want to see all the cool stuff that's in here, you got to have a little bit of an attention span and stick around. If you're new to the channel, please like, subscribe, share, turn on your notification bell. You don't want to miss any of the awesome content that I put up. So here's a couple other buildings right next to that one.
Where?
On the highway.
I also found a story about a homeless man that had tested positive for COVID-19, and they located him. They were looking for him. They located him while he was walking down the street near Grand and St. Louis Avenue, and he was admitted to a hotel in St. Louis County that had been contracted by the government, where people are being quarantined in individual rooms. And I think that was their plan for sick homeless people, was to get them off the streets and try to quarantine them to a room. One of the spokesmen for the county said that he was not bad enough to be admitted to a hospital. Now what you're looking at here is an abandoned Greyhound bus station that me and Andrew have wanted to explore the inside of for a very long time, but it's always full of people that live here, and they're always packed around the outside. Maybe one day I'll ask permission or give them a carton of cigarettes or something and see if we can get in safely to see what's left of this building. So guys, I tried to find some information on when this Greyhound bus station was built, because it's pretty cool. They have rebuilt another one. This is near, what, maybe Jefferson Avenue, Cass? I'm not 100% sure. I'm bad with street names. I just know how to get places. Right there in the back, you see a homeless man, and he's at work doing something, maybe cleaning his space. There's a mattress on the ground, and you're going to see me crash the drone here momentarily. And I almost thought I was going to have to go and be embarrassed and ask for my drone back. Maybe try to buy it back. It might have some monetary value, maybe a trade. But there's another one of his friends coming to help him out. And you can see this area is just littered with trash too. And generally to the right of there, oh, there we go, see? And then the drone, it came down, kind of fell. I was like, uh-oh. Right up on that fence. And when I look up, I'm still not 100% sure that they noticed the drone. Either that or they just really didn't care, one of the two. So, anyways, you see them down there doing stuff, but a lot of times in the summer I'll see a bunch of people that live in this area, in these buildings, sitting outside on this property and just kind of having a good time and talking to each other, sitting in lawn chairs, probably drinking a cold one, I guess. There is a video online somewhere of a guy who went in the station. He may not be from St. Louis. I think he has done a lot of videos in St. Louis, but I don't really think he's probably from the city. But he went in here one time when it was cold and then saw the sheer amount of homeless people that were living in it and then kind of took off. I guess he was kind of freaked out. He wasn't expecting it. But yeah, it's a pretty cool building, and when you get to the front of this, you'll see there's an older part to it as well. I believe this would be an older part up front. I found some information, I believe, that indicated that part of this up front may have been a bank at one point and then later was added on to and used by the Greyhound station. That information could all be wrong. If you have better information, please share it in the comments. I'd be happy to update or amend it. I really had trouble finding a lot of information about this building other than it was the old Greyhound station and they had built a new one. So as I promised, further in this video we're going to see a really big homeless encampment. This is a factory building. I'm not sure what kind. I wish I had time to find out or the means to find out which each and every one of these buildings were. We're going to go for a little bit of an overhead view so you can see what the area looks like directly around this abandoned Greyhound station and the warehouse that I just showed you at the beginning of the video. And you can also get a view of downtown from here. Most of these empty lots and just everything would have been completely packed. There would have been no space, no green lots. You know, maybe back in the 1950s or 60s, as the city of St. Louis is probably a population of 270,000. The metro area is like 2.5 million, but the city limits had lost a lot of population because it was at one point a city of almost 1 million people. And there's the St. Louis Arch and the Dome, and here's a view looking at the ground. These are some of the empty lots I'm talking about. None of these would have been empty. There's also mixed into some of these blocks some very old homes that are kind of crumbling and leaning, and it's kind of strange how close they are to industrial buildings. I don't know if they existed at the same time. Maybe they weren't built at the same time. Maybe one came before the other, or maybe they just lived that close to warehouses and factories. So anyways, here we are near downtown, and just in that last shot there was a few homeless people and some tents under this overpass. Now I went by here today and those tents were gone. They may have been...
That goes to Kansas City, this goes to 70 East.
Shuffled and moved somewhere else. Which is, I guess, understandable. I'm not sure. It seems like it'd be a good place to put a tent if it was going to rain. However, I'm not sure if there's a lot of wind block right there. There's an old Vest bottle. I think there's a Vest bottling place over across the street here. And you can see those tents in front of that big abandoned moving and storage building. I don't know what it was originally. And here in a second, we're about to go get a better view
We'll see where I can park to.
of the homeless encampment with the drone.
I'll tell you what would stink. No parking Saturday or Sunday.
So right there, I was looking for a place to park. And here we are in the front of this building. There's a video way back on my channel, a really old one. It's kind of crummy. It's interesting, but I had a really crummy camera and didn't quite have an idea how to film yet. But it's the building behind here, and it was open, and it was some sort of factory. There's conveyor belts and some stuff left over, and then we got scared because a guy was coming out of the top, and I ran out of the building. But there's a whole bunch of tents, and we're going to go in for a monumental close-up here in a moment. And I was also surprised because I don't think anybody noticed the drone. Nobody was looking at it. I saw the footage very large on my TV monitor when I was editing this, and it really didn't seem like anybody even noticed the drone was flying. And we're also going to take a look later on at the video at St. Louis Union Station, which was once the busiest train station in the United States, and we're going to see it currently how it looks during the COVID-19 pandemic with nobody there. It's no longer a train station though. Now they have like a new World Aquarium and a giant Ferris wheel and a fancy hotel and convention center. There's bicycles out there for riding around. I suppose all these people keep an eye on each other's belongings, and they probably all don't leave at once. Sometimes I've heard of some fights developing between the homeless in buildings where one person thinks somebody else stole their medication, etc. There was a news story, etc. Anyways, there was a news story ways back where one guy had pounded several other homeless people in the head with a hammer because he thought they took his medications, and a few of them went to the ICU. And that was a couple weeks after I was actually in the building and ran into the people living in the building, and it made me real grateful that he wasn't ticked off that day that I was in there. But that video has a ton of views. Again, that's not a very well shot video, but it probably had 100,000+ views on it. Most of these tents seem to be occupied. And by the way, guys, this is Easter when I filmed this. Not a lot going on. There wasn't many cars downtown. There was a little bit of activity, but not your normal activity. And all the churches were empty too. I'm kind of curious if somebody will find this video at a later date and watch it that was maybe too young to see this, 10, 15 years. Will YouTube exist? Will they see this and go, huh? Or maybe we'll all be infected by then. So I believe the city does have some homeless shelters in place. There was a big one downtown that was shut down because it was kind of, I guess, an eyesore, but it was the Reverend Larry Rice. He had a bunch of homeless shelters downtown. That arrow you guys just saw in that little caption, down on that riverfront there's a bunch of abandoned industrial buildings, and that railroad station is kind of open on the bottom floor, and if you're down there at the right time of day, you'll see people coming out of all over the place that you didn't know were there, and they're tucked away in different buildings and sleeping on the other side of the highway as well. So St. Louis will probably look emptier and emptier as time goes on. Once a city of 1 million people, now a city of probably less than 300,000 in the city limits. Now we saw that bus. There was a bus driver that had died from coronavirus in St. Louis. And anyways, all the bus drivers had face masks on. I had actually run into a couple early on during it that did not have face masks or gloves on, and the buses were not limiting at the time yet how many people could get on the bus. And to me it seemed to be kind of dangerous for the bus driver standing right at the front. No respirator, nothing on, people passing by them, bus filled with people, maybe they cough when they get on. I can tell you, if the pandemic was really bad, I definitely wouldn't want to be a bus driver without a respirator. But now every single one I've seen has a face mask on, and I saw signs on the side of the buses that
okay, you can get in. Thought it was gated.
Limit the amount of people allowed to ride at one time. There's the Ikea right there. That's kind of strange to see this place completely empty, although they might have been closed on Easter anyways, but they are closed every other day of the week currently too. They have a lot of cool stuff in there. Some of it kind of looks like junk. The cafeterias are nice. The food's pretty cheap, and they've got some pretty healthy choices. Salmon, all kinds of stuff, and not very expensive either. If you've never been to one, maybe just go there to have lunch if you're in a city that has one.
That looks like a big grain thing there. That thing for storing grain. It's a storage of some sort. Hear the wind? Alright.
Now, this Ikea opened up somewhere probably after 2010, I would venture to guess. I didn't look it up. But it was really full of people at first as it was new, and it's still pretty busy. Pretty neat place if you've never been to one. I was kind of surprised. You know, I've seen that thing off the highway before, but this grain or storage type building looks more like something you'd see directly along a river. You know, it kind of looks like a giant grain storage place where farmers all bring in their truckloads of grain to be dried and sold and put into storage. I'm not sure what that one actually carries.
In my opinion. The third one is...
The streets were pretty much empty during this, but panhandlers and homeless were still out on the street, and there was a few joggers here and there. Probably made it tough to ask for money during this time. However, there was a lot of people showing kindness and giving people tips, so I wonder if, although there was less traffic on the streets, there were actually more people that were being generous and tossing guys like that a $20 bill. I'd have to ask him how he made out during this period. Go find him. So here's Union Station right here, and as I mentioned earlier, this was once the largest train station, or the busiest, in the United States. It's a national landmark. It's on the National Register of Historic Places. It opened in 1894. The station was the largest in the world that had tracks and passenger service areas all on one level. And in the 1940s, its traffic peaked at 100,000 people a day. There was 100,000 people that came through this St. Louis Union Station. That's pretty crazy to think about. So, in every 10 days, 1 million people would pass through, which made it the busiest, maybe in the world. The last passenger train left this station in 1978. In the 80s, they started renovating it as a hotel, shopping center, and entertainment complex. Now, I believe the mall here that was open at one point shut down. and then in 2010 and currently it's been renovated more, and they've been expanding entertainment and office capacity. You can see that's fairly new over there, the Ferris wheel to the right. I've never even been over there to look at it up close. I've just seen it from the highway. At the train station's height, the station combined St. Louis passenger services of 22 railroads, the most of any single terminal in the whole world. In the 1940s, it handled, again, 100,000 passengers a day. The famous photograph of the President Harry S. Truman, who's from Missouri, holding the erroneous or the incorrect Chicago Tribune headline, "Dewey defeats Truman," was shot at the station as the president headed back to Washington, D.C. from Independence, Missouri after the 1948 presidential election. Here you see this is kind of some of the blocks surrounding it. There's some construction going on very close. I don't know if it's connected to Union Station or not, but there's a bunch of construction sites nearby, and a couple churches and some other buildings. But I thought you guys might enjoy a little bit of a street view. If you're new to the channel and you made it this far in the video, you obviously like the video and what I'm doing. So again, make sure you subscribe, like, share, and hit the notification bell. Also, please leave a comment in the comments section on the video. I read every single one of them. If you'd like to help support these videos, I am on Patreon. Type in TattooTonyAlton on Patreon. And again, don't forget the notification bell. Go over to Old and Fat Exploration and check out his videos. He's with me most of the time when I'm filming. And go over to Americana Explorer. Thank you so much for watching. Thank you so much for watching. And watching. Thank you for washing your hands. And I hope you enjoyed this video and come back to watch the next one.